The diplomatic fleet drifted like a procession of silver suns through the dust of the Hellion corridor. At its center, aboard the flagship Celestial, High Empress Ilyra Vess leaned her forehead against the cold glass of her observation deck. From orbit, the stars looked deceptively peaceful. That made it worse. 3 centuries of rule, and she still had not learned how to silence the part of her mind that counted every failure twice. "Your Majesty," said Minister Kale softly behind her, "we've reached the frontier route. The escort ships will adjust formation once you confirm the itinerary." "Continue as planned," Ilyra murmured. 12 ceremonial stops. Agricultural audits, trade agreements. She exhaled through her teeth. "Try not to let me die of boredom until we arrive." Kale hesitated, and the unscheduled detour. Ilyra's jaw tensed, her fingers curled against the glass. "Yes. We stop on Araman 4. "Your Majesty," Kale said carefully, "the Crown Princess asked explicitly not to be visited." "My daughter," Ilyra corrected, turning to face him fully. "She is my daughter before she is my heir. And I have not looked into her eyes in 6 years." Kale swallowed. "Of course, Majesty." The Empress dismissed him with a gesture, but when the doors sealed, her breath trembled in her chest. She played the message again. Her daughter's face flickered into existence. The same snow-white hair, the same violet eyes, carefully arranged calm hiding something brittle beneath it. "Mother, please don't worry. The colony is peaceful. I'm adjusting well. I don't want to disrupt your duties with a visit. 6 years of these messages, perfectly worded, perfectly empty." Her daughter had fled the Empire after a medical council delivered a verdict no Celestian ruler had ever faced. Irreversible infertility caused by radiation exposure during the Meridian War. A political tragedy, a personal catastrophe. But it wasn't the infertility that haunted Ilyra, it was the look her daughter wore when the news was delivered. The look of someone who no longer believed she had a place in her own life. Ilyra whispered into the empty room, "Seren, what have you done all these years without me?" When the fleet broke warp over Araman 4, she ordered her guards to stand down, her insignias removed, and a civilian cloak draped over her shoulders. A queen descending in disguise. It would have been amusing if her heartbeat weren't echoing like a war drum. She took the shuttle alone. The frontier colony was small, prefabricated modules, dusty solar arrays, and the smell of soil that had never known palace marble. It was quiet, peaceful, wrong. Her daughter was here somewhere, living a life the Empire knew nothing about, and it terrified her in a way nothing in her 300 years of rule ever had. She stepped down the ramp. And the moment her boots hit the red dirt, she felt it. A presence, a pulse, a disturbance in the world, something that should not exist. Ilyra froze. The Celestian were an ancient species, evolved with a faint empathic resonance that tied bloodlines together. Weak, subtle, barely perceptible, but unmistakable, and she had just felt it. A resonance that matched her own blood. A child's presence, 2 of them. No, 3, her breath vanished. Impossible, her daughter was barren. The medical council had been certain, and yet, somewhere on this frontier colony, 3 Celestian human hybrid children with her blood were laughing, breathing, living. Grandchildren. She staggered, catching herself on the railing. The universe tilted around her. Her daughter had not only healed, she had built a family, and she had kept it from the Empress of 200 worlds. The colony's main path was little more than packed dirt and mismatched stone. The kind frontier farmers collected one piece at a time from fields that didn't want to be tamed. Ilyra walked it slowly, her cloak pulled tight, her senses stretched thin as light. The resonance was unmistakable now. 3 signatures, 3 impossibilities, 3 lives she had not known existed. Each heartbeat felt like a blade carving through the quiet she'd wrapped around her grief all these years. The colony had changed since Seren's last message. More dwellings, more humans, more signs of life. But the house at the outskirts, the one her daughter had chosen for solitude, still stood at the end of a winding path bordered by stubborn green shoots. The shoots weren't decorative. They were vegetables, a garden. Her daughter had never grown anything in her life. The palace gardens had terrified her as a child, too fragile, too alive, too easy to ruin. Ilyra slowed, brushing her fingers through the leaves, warm, healthy, thriving. Someone else tended them, someone patient, someone human. Her chest tightened. When she reached the small house, voices drifted through the half-open window, a man's laugh, a child's shrieking giggle. Then, "Papa, the little one stole the berry jar." "Give it back, Kale. Don't you climb that. No, no, no." "Papa, catch." Something crashed, something tiny wailed, someone cursed softly. Ilyra's heart stopped. Papa, her daughter had married a human. A hand went to her mouth, fingers trembling. Before she could steady herself, the door swung open with the force of a small hurricane, and a silver-haired child barreled directly into her knees. The girl froze. Wide violet eyes, Celestian eyes, stared up at her with startled wonder. "You look like Mama," the child whispered, "but older." Ilyra's legs nearly failed. A second child skidded into view, a boy with dark human hair and luminous Celestian undertones beneath his skin. His posture was defensive, protective. He positioned himself between the girl and Ilyra, jaw set with a courage far too large for someone so small. Behind them, a tall human man burst into the doorway, holding a toddler under one arm like a squirming loaf of bread. His eyes met Ilyra's. Recognition hit instantly. Not of her identity, he had no idea he was staring at the ruler of 200 worlds, but of the meaning behind her presence. He stepped forward, adjusting the toddler against his chest, and offered a hand the way frontier people did when they had no weapons to show. His voice was steady, warm, strong. "I'm Aaron," he said, "Seren's husband." Husband. The word slid into Ilyra's bones like a foreign ritual she'd never learned. Before she could speak, before she could breathe, the little girl tugged her cloak. "Are you really our grandmother?" The universe cracked. Ilyra dropped to her knees, not as a queen, not as the Empress of 200 worlds, but as a woman who had believed her bloodline ended 6 years ago. Her hands trembled as she touched the girl's cheek. "Yes," she whispered, voice breaking for the first time in decades. "Little star, yes, I am." The toddler reached out too, tiny hands grabbing at her hair with absolute trust. The boy hovered warily, still shielding his siblings with the seriousness of a soldier half his size. The back door creaked. A familiar voice froze the world. "Mother." Seren stood just inside the threshold, hair tied back with a cloth streaked from gardening, sleeves rolled to her elbows, a faint smear of flour across one cheek. Not a princess, not an heir, a woman who had been building a life, her life. "Seren," Ilyra breathed. Her daughter pressed a hand to her mouth, tears already gathering. "You weren't supposed to come today," she whispered. I needed more time." Time had been the very thing that had broken them. Ilyra tried to rise, her knees failed. The boy and girl grabbed her arms on instinct, and Aaron reached forward to steady her. She had not felt this fragile since the day the medical council said the word barren. Finally standing, she faced her daughter fully. Her voice was a thread unraveling. "Seren, why didn't you tell me?" Seren flinched, not from anger, but from guilt so old it had calcified. "Because I didn't want the Empire to take them," she whispered. "To take my life. I needed something that was mine before I could ever be anything else again." The 3 children clung to her legs. Aaron stood behind, solid as a mountain. And Ilyra, High Empress, ruler of the Celestian Dominion, felt something in her chest crack with quiet devastation. She had lost 6 years. 6 years of laughter, 6 years of first steps, 6 years of miracles she had never imagined possible. A tear slid down her face, not for the throne, not for tradition, but for the life her daughter had built without her. "Seren," she whispered, reaching out with shaking hands, "may I hold them?" Her daughter's breath broke. She nodded. The boy released his guard stance. The toddler reached with chubby arms. The little girl took Ilyra's cloak with both hands and tugged her down gently. The small home felt impossibly full, of children's laughter, of warm air from the oven, of a life so ordinary and bright that it nearly blinded Ilyra. She sat on a low chair, too small for her, too creaky for someone with imperial posture, but she didn't care. The toddler Murren, Seren called him, had climbed directly onto her lap with the confidence of a conquering general. The little girl, Lyra, hovered at her knee, studying Ilyra's braids with scientific focus. The eldest boy, Kale, named after a Celestian ancestor, Ilyra noted despite herself, stood at a cautious distance, arms folded, watching her with suspicion that didn't match his soft features. Seren stood in the kitchen archway, arms wrapped around herself, eyes shining with nerves she couldn't disguise. Aaron moved quietly around her, handing utensils, checking the food, offering reassurances without speaking. They were a well-practiced pair, moving in tandem like currents in the same river. Ilyra watched them all silently. Every piece of this life was a discovery, every discovery a wound and a balm. Finally, she spoke. "Seren," she said, voice softer than she had ever used in a council chamber, "may I know their names properly, and how they came to be?" Seren inhaled sharply. Aaron set down a dish and gave her a gentle nod, as if reminding her she wasn't alone in this anymore. Seren stepped forward. "This is Lyra," she said, brushing her daughter's silver hair. She's 5, Kale is 4, and Murren, he's 2. They're healthy, they're strong there. Impossible, Ilyra whispered. Seren's expression tightened painfully. Yes, I know. Eren approached, wiping his hands on a cloth. He looked at Ilyra with the calm of someone who'd spoken bad news to frighten people many times before. It wasn't Celestian medicine that helped her, he said. It was ours. Ilyra's eyes widened. Human fertility science healed Celestian reproductive structures. That is unprecedented. It wasn't easy, Eren admitted, and the first treatments didn't take. He glanced at Seren, something tender and protective passing between them. But she didn't give up. Seren's eyes dropped. There were days I wanted to. And I wouldn't let you, Eren said. You were insufferable about it, Seren muttered. You love me for it. Unfortunately, the banter was so natural, so lived in, that Ilyra felt her throat tighten again. She had not seen her daughter speak so freely, so lightly in centuries. When Seren turned back to her, her posture straightened, the old Celestian rigidity resurfacing like a reflex. I didn't want you to know, she said quietly, because I knew what it would mean. What do you think it means? Ilyra asked. That the Empire would see them as heirs, Seren answered immediately. Assets, symbols, bargaining tools, pawns. I wanted them to be children first. Ilyra felt that like a blade to the chest. Seren, have I truly given you cause to believe I would take them from you? Seren's lips trembled. It's not you, mother, it's the throne. Her voice cracked. It takes everything, eventually. There were no words for a long moment. Only the sound of Murren patting Ilyra's cheek with sticky fingers and declaring, Nana, with absolute certainty. Ilyra's breath caught. Nana, she echoed. He's trying to say grandmother, Eren said, sheepish. We didn't teach him. He just figured it out. Lyra beamed. He's smart. Papa says Murren is good at learning feelings. Ilyra blinked. Learning feelings. Seren winced. He's a bit different. Eren knelt beside them, lifting Murren gently. We think the hybrid genetics made him more sensitive to Celestian resonance. He can sense emotions, strongly. That is not a Celestian trait, Ilyra murmured, mind racing. At least, not naturally. Human neurology amplifies it, Eren said. Or so the doctors think. Ilyra stared at the toddler, big silver eyes, bright and unafraid, a strange spark glowing behind them. A child who could sense the emotions of others. A child who could feel what people didn't say. A child who, in the wrong place, would be weaponized. Seren saw the knowledge dawn in her mother's eyes and stepped forward quickly. No, she said, fierce. Do not think it. Do not even consider it. He's a child, my child, not a tool. Ilyra raised both hands, palms open. I am not my counsel, Seren. You are the Empress. I am also your mother. They stared at each other, the air thick with everything they had not said for 6 years. Finally, Kale broke the silence with the blunt impatience of a 4-year-old. Are you going to fight? He demanded. Because Mama says we don't fight inside. We go outside to fight. Eren pinched the bridge of his nose. Kale, what? You said the kitchen is not a battlefield, only the yard. Seren groaned. Eren, stopped teaching them metaphors. Ilyra laughed, actually laughed, a short, sharp sound she barely recognized as her own. The children stared at her in delight, then erupted into laughter simply because she had. Seren's eyes softened. Eren whispered, I've never heard him make them laugh like that. And something inside Ilyra finally broke open, not in pain but in light. She looked at her daughter, at her grandchildren, at the home she had never been invited to but now could not imagine walking away from. Seren, she said, voice steadying with a queen's resolve wrapped around a mother's heart, I will not take them. I will not expose them. I will not declare anything unless you choose it. Her daughter's breath hitched. Eren took her hand, the children leaned closer, and Ilyra finished, they deserve childhood and you deserve peace. Seren covered her mouth with both hands, tears spilling freely. Kale frowned. Mama's leaking. Lyra corrected him. Grown-ups leak when they feel too many feelings. Yes, Ilyra whispered, they do. Eren slipped an arm around Seren. Murren babbled sleepily and curled against Ilyra's chest. And for the first time in centuries, the Empress felt something she had thought lost forever, belonging. The honor guards' presence filled the tiny frontier home like a stormfront forced into a room far too small to contain it. Their ceremonial armor, obsidian edges, shifting iridescent plates, looked violently out of place beside children's drawings taped to the wall and the overturned toy spacecraft on the floor. Seren instinctively stepped between the guards and her children. Eren matched her a breath later, squaring his shoulders despite being unarmed and outmatched by a civilization with star-crushing weapons. Ilyra lifted a hand, calm, composed, imperial. "Stand down," she told her guards. They did not move. "Your Majesty," said the taller one, "we were given direct orders to locate you. The council began to panic when you missed your scheduled transmission window. There was fear of abduction or assassination. The fleet is on alert." Ilyra's stomach dropped. She had forgotten her transmission window. The council would assume the worst. The entire Dominion might already be bracing for a political crisis. "I am unharmed," Ilyra said sharply, "and I am not returning yet." The guards both blinked, Celestian shock, subtle but unmistakable. "Majesty, the negotiations." "Can wait." "But your Majesty." "I said," she repeated, each syllable edged with a queen's steel, "they can wait." Silence, thick, stunned. Only Murren, now fully awake in Eren's arms, dared to break it, slapping a chubby hand against Eren's chest and babbling nonsense syllables that somehow felt like the clearest truth in the room. Ilyra exhaled slowly. "You will return to the fleet. Inform them that I am conducting private sovereign business and am not to be disturbed for any reason short of war." The shorter guards shifted uncomfortably. "Majesty, may we ask what private business requires 3 days of secrecy?" 3 days, she hadn't said that aloud. Ilyra paused, then turned not toward the guards but toward Seren. Her daughter's eyes were wide, frightened, hopeful all at once. 3 days would not repair 6 lost years, but it was a start. "You may not ask," Ilyra said, "and you will not be told." The guards looked between each other, uncertain. "As you command, your Majesty." They bowed deeply and retreated. When the door finally shut behind them, the quiet that followed felt like the first breath after drowning. Seren slumped against the wall. Eren let out a long breath through his teeth. The children stared at the door, then at their grandmother. Kale broke the silence first. "Are those the people Mama used to work with?" Eren choked on a laugh. Seren buried her face in her hands. "They are soldiers of the Imperial Guard," Ilyra said gently. "Very serious, very stern, very bad at fitting inside small kitchens." Lyra nodded solemnly. They looked scared. "Of what?" Kale demanded. Seren whispered, "Of her." The children stared at their grandmother with newfound awe. Murren reached out tiny arms toward Ilyra again. Eren passed him over without hesitation. The toddler pressed his forehead to Ilyra's collarbone and sighed, content, trusting, utterly unaware of the forces gathering around his existence. Seren crossed the room slowly. "I told no one," she murmured. "Not even the neighbors, not even when I gave birth here. I just wanted us to be normal." Ilyra reached out and cupped her daughter's cheek. "You were never normal, Seren. Not as a child, not as a princess, not as a mother. You have always surpassed every expectation, including the universe's." Seren laughed wetly. "That sounds like a compliment." "It is." Silence softened between them, less sharp, less heavy than before. Eren cleared his throat. "Your Majesty." "Ilyra," she corrected. He stiffened. I can't call the Empress by her name. You married my daughter. You fathered my grandchildren. You have earned the right." Seren nudged him with her elbow. "Told you." Eren's ears reddened. "Still feels illegal." "It is not illegal," Ilyra said. "Merely unusual." Lyra tugged her sleeve. "Nana, are you staying for dinner?" Ilyra blinked. If I am welcome." 3 small heads nodded vigorously. Seren wiped her eyes. "You are." Eren smiled, warm, genuine. "I hope you're hungry. It's vegetable stew." Ilyra glanced at the garden outside. "Grown here." "Yes," Eren answered proudly. "Survived all 3 children helping?" she asked skeptically. Seren snorted, "Barely." And in that moment, standing in a kitchen smaller than her palace wardrobe, wearing dust on her boots and a toddler clinging to her collar, Ilyra realized something dark and bright and dangerous. If the Empire took these children, they would break her daughter. If the Council demanded heirs, they would destroy this life. If the Dominion tried to claim what Seren had built, Ilyra would burn the throne to ash before she allowed it. She would rewrite succession law. She would protect these children with the full force of the Dominion. She would tear planets apart if she had to. Family was older than empire, older than politics, older than the throne itself. She kissed Murren's silver hair and whispered, "No one will take you, not now, not ever." Eren's eyes softened. Seren's lips trembled, and Lyra leaned on a light. Morning sunlight spilled across the small house in warm, uneven stripes, the kind that slipped through imperfect window seals and caught on dust motes drifting lazily in the air. Ilyra sat at the kitchen table with a mug of something Eren called frontier coffee, which tasted vaguely like roasted soil, but made her chest feel warm in a strangely comforting way. Seren moved quietly around the kitchen, her hair braided loosely over one shoulder, sleeves rolled up. She handled the space with familiarity, not grace. She dropped a spoon twice, burned her finger once, and spilled flour across the counter when Murren made a grab for the mixing bowl. It was messy, it was real, and Ilyra found herself unable to look away. Kale stood on a stool helping Eren chop vegetables. "I am the chopper warrior," he declared proudly, wielding a child-safe knife like it was a legendary blade. Eren nodded solemnly. Indeed, fiercest in the land. Lyra sat beside Ilyra, drawing with thick crayons. She pressed a paper into Ilyra's hands, a drawing of 5 stick figures all holding hands. One had a crown. 2 had silver hair. One was tall with messy black scribbles for hair. One was very small with giant eyes. Ilyra's throat tightened. "Is that me?" she whispered. Lyra nodded vigorously. "You have the pointy crown so everyone knows you're important." Eren muttered, "Accurate." Seren elbowed him. Ilyra smoothed a hand over the paper, feeling something in her chest she had not felt in centuries, something fragile, bright, terrifyingly hopeful. Seren glanced over her shoulder. "Mother, are you sure the council won't send more guards?" Ilyra lifted her mug. "I have ordered them to remain in orbit unless the galaxy ends." Eren raised a brow. "Has that ever happened?" "Once," Ilyra said, briefly. Kale looked up in horror. "The galaxy exploded." Seren pinched the bridge of her nose. "No, sweetheart, she's exaggerating." "Am I?" Ilyra murmured, sipping her terrible coffee. Eren laughed. "Your Majesty, with respect, you're not helping." "I'm not trying to help," she said. "I am trying to enjoy watching you sweat." Seren groaned. "Mother." "Nana," Lyra corrected sweetly. "Yes," Ilyra said, brushing Lyra's hair back. "Nana is acceptable." Seren stared at her mother for a long moment, her expression softening with something approaching awe. "You've changed," she whispered. "I've aged," Ilyra corrected. "No, this is new. When I left, you were all steel edges and expectations." Ilyra swallowed. "When you left, I had just lost my daughter." Seren's breath caught. "But now," Ilyra continued, voice tightening, "now I see I did not lose you. I lost the illusion that keeping you close meant keeping you whole." The quiet that followed was not sharp. It was soft, heavy with unspoken forgiveness. Eren cleared his throat gently. "Breakfast is ready." They gathered around the small table. Everyone squeezed in too tightly, elbows bumping, children wriggling, Murren crawling from Ilyra's lap to Seren, to Eren's and back again like a tiny comet seeking gravitational balance. Kale ate with fierce dedication. Lyra talked nonstop about a friend at the colony school. Seren tried and failed to keep Murren from sticking his fingers in everyone's food. Eren laughed more in 15 minutes than Ilyra had heard any council member laugh in decades. And Ilyra. She watched, absorbed, memorized every second. She didn't realize how badly she needed this until it was already happening. Halfway through the meal, Seren set down her fork. "Mother, after breakfast, I need to talk to you outside, alone." Eren stiffened but said nothing. Kale looked up, crumbs all over his face. "Are you going to duel?" "Because Mama says you can't duel near the vegetables." "No one is dueling," Seren said quickly. Kale sighed, "Not even a little." "No," Lyra leaned toward Ilyra. "Mama gets nervous sometimes." Murren banged a spoon against the table to demonstrate agreement. Ilyra placed her hand over Seren's. "Whenever you're ready." The children ran into the yard with Eren trailing behind them. Their laughter filled the air, bright and wild. Seren and Ilyra stood in the garden, the same garden that had once been Seren's battlefield and was now her sanctuary. Seren spoke first. "You should know the full truth," she said, "not just what you've seen these 2 days." Ilyra nodded. "When I left the Empire, I wasn't trying to heal, I was trying to disappear." Ilyra's breath hitched. "I couldn't stand being a symbol of failure," Seren continued. "Everywhere I went, people whispered, pitied me. And you tried so hard to be strong for me that you stopped being real with me. I didn't want comfort. I wanted someone to sit with me in the dark." Ilyra closed her eyes in pain. "I failed you," she whispered. "No. You ruled an empire. You didn't know how to mother a grieving adult." Ilyra opened her eyes. "And now?" Seren exhaled shakily. "Now I don't know how to be both Seren and Princess Seren again." "You do not have to be both," Ilyra said. "You choose who you are, and the Empire will adapt." Seren blinked. "That's not how the Empire works." "It is now," Ilyra said simply. Seren stared at her, studying her mother's face as if seeing it clearly for the first time. "You're serious?" "Yes. Mother, I have a family here, a life, a husband who loves me, children who ground me. If the council learns any of this, they'll start planning succession ceremonies before the children learn to read." Ilyra reached out and took Seren's hands. "Listen to me," she said firmly. "Your children will not be heirs, not unless they choose to be. I will rewrite the succession protocols. I will carve your wishes into law." Seren's eyes filled with tears. "You would rewrite the foundation of our dynasty, for me." "For them," Ilyra corrected softly. "So they may grow without fear, without duty crushing them before they even understand what it is." A tear rolled down Seren's cheek. Ilyra brushed it away. "I have ruled for 3 centuries," she whispered. "But you, Seren, you gave me something I never had until now." "What?" "A future I want to live long enough to see." Seren broke, falling forward, arms wrapping around her mother, sobbing quietly into her shoulder. Ilyra held her tightly, fiercely, as if anchoring both of them to the ground. Eren turned at the sound of crying from the yard's edge. But when he saw mother and daughter locked together, he gently herded the children back toward the house with soft instructions. For a long moment, the world seemed to narrow to a single point. Seren's trembling voice, the whisper that still echoed in Ilyra's mind like a shockwave. "He can change them." Ilyra steadied herself. "Seren, explain." Her daughter exhaled shakily. "It started when he was barely a year old. When I would cry, he'd crawl into my lap, touch my face, and the grief would just mute, sometimes vanish. It felt like someone had turned down the volume inside my own mind." Ilyra's breath shuddered. "Celestians have never been able to manipulate emotion." "Exactly," Seren said. "We barely sense them. But humans have these complex neurological empathy networks. When the doctors combined your genetic resonance with Eren's human neural adaptivity," she swallowed. "Something new happened, Mother." Ilyra stared at the garden, as if it might give her answers. The Celestian Dominion had classified emotional manipulation as one of the forbidden talents, hypothetical abilities too dangerous for any telepathic species to evolve. Powers that could topple governments, destabilize treaties, destroy civilization without a single weapon fired. And her grandson, her tiny, laughing, sticky-fingered grandson, had one of them. "Does Eren know?" Ilyra asked, already suspecting the answer. Seren shook her head. "No, I didn't want him to be afraid of his own child, and I didn't want rumors to spread, so I hid it. I hid everything." Ilyra stepped forward, her voice dropping into the deep, resonant register she only used when galaxies hung in the balance. "Seren, show me." Seren hesitated, then nodded. Inside the house, Eren was helping Kale stack pillows into a structurally unsound fort, while Lyra attempted to teach Murren a song about heroic space chickens. The moment Seren entered, Murren abandoned the song and waddled toward her, arms raised, climbing her leg with all the grace of a determined koala. Seren picked him up slowly, her hands tightening just a fraction. "Murren," she whispered, touching her forehead to his. "Little star, can you show Nana what you showed Mama?" Murren pulled back, blinking his enormous silver eyes. Then he reached a hand toward Ilyra, just a small toddler's hand. But the moment his fingers curled in the air, something hit her. A warmth, a softening, a sudden dissolving of every tension she'd held in her chest this entire visit. Her fear, her anger at the council, her guilt, her doubt, everything quieted, fading like mist under sunlight. It wasn't forced. It wasn't invasive. It felt like being wrapped in a blanket that smelled of childhood. Murren giggled. The warmth vanished instantly, not violently, just gone, leaving Ilyra trembling. Seren held him tighter. "It's stronger when he's upset, or when someone around him is hurting. He doesn't fully control it, it just happens." Eren, unaware of the seismic revelation in the room, continued stacking pillows. "What's going on? Everyone okay?" Seren turned to him, and Ilyra saw the fear cross her daughter's face. Not fear of him, fear for him. If the Empire learned about Murren's ability, if the Council ever suspected, if any noble, any general, any enemy caught wind of a Celestian heir capable of emotional modulation, the child would never be safe again. Ilyra squared her shoulders. "Seren," she said softly, "Eren deserves to know." Seren's breath hitched. "I know, but telling him means admitting that our son could be seen as a weapon, and he will blame himself for it." Eren looked over, puzzled. "What are you two whispering about like you're plotting a coup?" "We're not plotting a coup," Ilyra said. "Yet," Seren muttered under her breath. Ilyra shot her a look. "Seren." "What, you raised me?" You know how Celestian politics work. Aaron's eyes widened. Wait, why would there be a coup? Seren exhaled sharply, took his hand, and guided him to sit. Aaron, she said, Murren is different. Aaron blinked. Different how? Seren looked at Ilyra. Ilyra nodded. Seren took a breath. He doesn't just sense emotions, he can alter them. Aaron's jaw dropped. What? He whispered. Seren, that's not possible. Murren, sensing the stress in his father, reached out and touched Aaron's cheek. The entire tension drained from Aaron's face as if someone had let the air out of him. His shoulders dropped, his breath eased, his eyes softened. Murren giggled and patted Aaron again. Aaron turned to Seren and Ilyra, stunned. That felt like peace, like you erased everything wrong with the world for a second. Seren's voice cracked. That's what I've been living with for 2 years. Aaron looked at his son again, this time not with fear but with awe. This isn't a curse, he whispered. He's helping us, he's helping people. Perhaps, Ilyra said, but others will not see it that way. Aaron's face hardened. Then we protect him, whatever it takes. And we will, Ilyra said. The room went still, 3 adults, 1 extraordinary child, a destiny none of them had asked for, but all of them were now bound to. Seren, Ilyra continued, this ability, if it grows with him, it could reshape diplomacy, conflict, everything. If the Council learns of it, they will attempt to claim him. They may try to separate him from you for training or protection. Aaron snarled, over my dead body. Seren gripped his hand. You see why I hid them. Ilyra stepped forward, touching Seren's shoulder. You will not hide anymore, she said. Not because the Empire deserves the truth, but because you deserve safety without secrecy. Seren's voice quivered. How? Ilyra inhaled deeply. The next words carried the weight of a coronation oath. I will rewrite the succession laws. I will restrict council access to all hybrid children. I will declare that heirs must choose the throne, not inherit it. And I will make sealed decrees ensuring your children are legally protected from political exploitation. Aaron blinked. You can do that. I am the Empress, Ilyra said. I can do anything except bring back the years I lost with you. Seren burst into tears. Aaron wrapped his arms around her as she cried against his chest. Murren reached out, confused by her sadness, his little fingers trembling as he tried desperately to push comfort into her, but Seren gently caught his hand. No, little one, she whispered. Not this time, this sadness is mine. Ilyra watched, heart full, breaking, healing all at once. Then Lyra ran in from the yard, dragging Kale behind her. Nana, she shouted, come see, we built a fortress. A pillow fortress, Kale added proudly. Papa says it's structurally unsound but emotionally important. Ilyra laughed, out loud, freely, unexpectedly. She followed them into the other room, letting her cloak fall behind her. Seren and Aaron watched from the doorway, holding each other, both crying softly, both smiling through it. Murren toddled after Ilyra and tugged on her cloak until she bent down. He pressed his forehead gently to hers. No emotion manipulation, no calming aura, just connection, pure, childlike, true. Love, he whispered, mispronouncing the word one of his siblings had taught him. Ilyra's breath caught. She swept him into her arms and held him against her chest. And for the first time in